The sleek, futuristic embassy hall was abuzz with tension. Jack Lawson, an Australian diplomat known for his unyielding integrity and sharp negotiation skills, strode through the grandiose entrance. His mission, to secure a peace treaty between Earth and the Zorathian Empire, an alien race renowned for their advanced technology and rigid societal customs. Jack paused, taking in the grandeur of the Zorathian architecture. Towering pillars of shimmering crystal cast an ethereal glow, while intricate mosaics depicted the rich history of the Zorathian people. It was amidst this awe-inspiring backdrop that he first laid eyes on Princess Lyra. Lyra stood apart from the delegation, her regal presence commanding attention. She was the epitome of Zorathian elegance, her silver-blue skin luminescent under the soft lights, and her eyes, deep and enigmatic, reflecting galaxies within. As their gazes met, an inexplicable connection sparked between them, a fleeting moment that felt charged with unspoken possibilities. The formal introductions began, with Lyra's father, Emperor Varric, presiding over the proceedings. His voice boomed with authority, outlining the goals of the summit. Beside him, General Tharn, a stern and imposing figure, watched Jack with thinly veiled suspicion. Tharn's reputation as a hardliner against human-Zorathian relations preceded him, and his presence was a palpable reminder of the mission's precarious nature. "Mr. Lawson," Emperor Varric began, his tone courteous yet commanding, "we welcome you to Zorathia. We hope these talks will mark the beginning of a prosperous alliance." Jack nodded respectfully. "Your Majesty, it is an honor. Earth shares your hope for a future of peace and cooperation." The initial discussions were formal, each side presenting their case. Jack outlined Earth's desire for technological exchange and mutual defense pacts, while the Zorathians emphasized their need for resource sharing and cultural respect. Despite the surface politeness, Jack could sense the underlying currents of tension, particularly from General Tharn, whose icy demeanor suggested an agenda beyond diplomacy. As the day progressed, the negotiations became more intense. Jack's calm, measured responses were met with increasingly hostile rebuttals from Tharn. The general's distrust was evident, his arguments laced with insinuations about human duplicity. Jack countered with facts and logic, but the strain was evident. During a break, Jack wandered the embassy gardens, seeking a moment of respite. The tranquil environment, with its alien flora and serene water features, provided a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere inside. As he turned a corner, he found Lyra seated on a stone bench, her expression contemplative. "Princess," Jack greeted, inclining his head. "Mr. Lawson," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "Please, call me Lyra." "Only if you call me Jack," he responded with a smile. She returned the smile, and for a moment, the weight of their respective duties seemed to lift. They talked about their worlds, their hopes for the future, and the challenges they faced. Lyra spoke of her desire to see her people thrive in harmony with humans, while Jack shared his vision of a united front against common threats. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message summoning them back to the hall. As they returned, Jack felt a renewed sense of determination, bolstered by his interaction with Lyra. Back in the hall, the atmosphere had shifted. Reports had come in of a sabotage attempt on the Zorathian communication network, a clear act of aggression aimed at disrupting the peace talks. Accusations flew, with Tharn quick to point fingers at the humans. "This is an act of war," Tharn declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. Jack stood his ground. "General, Earth condemns this act and will fully cooperate in an investigation. We are here to build peace, not tear it apart." Emperor Varric, sensing the situation's volatility, called for calm. "We will not let saboteurs dictate our actions. The talks will continue, and we will find those responsible." The tension reached a boiling point, but the Emperor's words provided a temporary respite. As the session adjourned, Jack felt the weight of the mission more acutely than ever. The stakes had been raised, and the path to peace was fraught with peril. As he left the hall, Jack felt a gentle touch on his arm. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes filled with concern. "Be careful, Jack. There are forces at work that do not wish to see us succeed." "I will, Lyra." "And thank you," he said, his resolve hardening. "We will find a way to make this work." As Jack returned to his quarters, a sudden explosion rocked the embassy, sending shockwaves of panic and chaos. The security alarms blared, and Jack's instincts kicked in. He raced towards the source of the blast, knowing that the true test of their resolve had just begun. In the aftermath of the explosion, the once grand embassy hall was now a chaotic scene of flashing lights, hurried footsteps, and urgent voices. Jack Lawson stood amidst the turmoil, his mind racing to piece together the implications of this attack. The diplomatic mission, already fragile, now teetered on the brink of collapse. Jack's immediate concern was for Princess Lyra. Scanning the room, he found her assisting injured delegates, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the surrounding panic. He admired her composure and resolve, qualities that only deepened his burgeoning feelings for her. "Lyra!" Jack called out, rushing to her side. "Are you all right?" She turned, relief evident in her eyes. "I'm fine, Jack. But we need to get these people to safety." Together, they coordinated the evacuation, guiding the wounded and ensuring everyone was accounted for. Despite the chaos, their movements were synchronized, a testament to their growing connection. As the last of the delegates were escorted out, Lyra and Jack found themselves momentarily alone in a quiet corridor. Who could have done this? Lyra wondered aloud, her voice tinged with worry. Jack's jaw tightened. General Tharn seems eager to blame humans, but I suspect there's more to it. We need to find out who's behind this. Their conversation was interrupted by a message from the Emperor, summoning all key personnel to an emergency meeting. The room they entered was tense, filled with wary glances and whispered speculations. Emperor Varric stood at the head of the table, his expression grave. "We have confirmed that the explosion was a deliberate act of sabotage," he announced. "This attack was meant to disrupt our peace efforts. General Tharn has proposed increased security measures and immediate suspension of the talks." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement and dissent. Jack could feel Tharn's eyes boring into him, the general's suspicion palpable. He knew he had to speak up. "Your Majesty," Jack began, standing to address the room. "Suspending the talks would be a victory for those who wish to see us divided. We must show resilience and continue our efforts. I propose a joint investigation team comprised of both Zarathians and humans to uncover the truth behind this attack." Tharn's scowl deepened, but before he could object, Lyra spoke up. "I agree with Jack. Cooperation is our best chance to find the culprits and demonstrate our commitment to peace." Her support was a bold move, and it did not go unnoticed. The Emperor nodded slowly. "Very well. A joint investigation team it is. General Tharn, you will lead the Zarathian side. Mr. Lawson, you will lead the human side. Work together to bring the perpetrators to justice." The meeting adjourned with the weight of the task ahead pressing down on everyone. As the room cleared, Jack and Lyra lingered, the gravity of their roles sinking in. "We'll have to be careful," Lyra said softly. "There are those who will see our cooperation as a threat." Jack nodded. "We'll need to be discreet. Let's meet tonight to discuss our strategy." Under the cover of darkness, Jack made his way to a secluded corner of the embassy gardens, a place they had previously found solace in. Lyra was already there, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of bioluminescent flowers. "Thank you for backing me up in there," Jack said as he approached. Lyra smiled. "We're in this together, Jack. I believe in our cause." They spent the next few hours poring over data, discussing potential suspects, and formulating a plan. Their conversation was intense, yet laced with moments of levity, small exchanges that revealed their mutual respect and growing affection. As the night wore on, their dialogue shifted from the investigation to more personal matters. Lyra shared stories of her childhood, her dreams for the future, and the immense pressure she felt as a leader. Jack, in turn, spoke of his family, his motivations, and the weight of his responsibilities. The bond between them deepened, each shared story weaving a tighter connection. Lyra's eyes shone with empathy as she listened to Jack, her hand occasionally brushing against his in a gesture of comfort. Their meeting was abruptly ended by a sudden noise, a twig snapping in the distance. They both tensed, instinctively moving closer to the shadows. "We should go," Lyra whispered, her eyes scanning the dark. "It's not safe here." They parted ways cautiously, each slipping back into the embassy through separate routes. Jack's mind raced with the events of the day, the urgency of their mission, and the undeniable pull he felt towards Lyra. Just as Jack drifted off to sleep, his communicator buzzed urgently. He answered groggily, only to hear a panicked voice on the other end. "Jack, it's Lyra. I found something. Meet me in the data center immediately. We're not alone in this." The dimly lit data center was a labyrinth of screens and terminals, humming softly as they processed vast amounts of information. Jack moved swiftly through the shadows, his mind alert and his senses heightened. Lyra's urgent message had shaken him from his exhausted state, and now every nerve in his body was on edge. He found Lyra hunched over a terminal, her face illuminated by the eerie glow of the monitor. She looked up as he approached, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Jack, over here," she whispered, motioning him to her side. "I've found something." "What is it?" Jack asked, leaning in to examine the screen. Lyra pointed to a series of encrypted messages. These communications were intercepted from Tharn's private network. They prove that he's been collaborating with a rogue human faction. They're planning to sabotage the peace talks and incite war. Jack's jaw tightened. "We need to get this to the Emperor immediately." As they prepared to leave, the door to the data center creaked open. Jack and Lyra froze, their hearts pounding. A figure stepped inside. Jack instinctively reached for his sidearm, but Lyra placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "Wait," she whispered. "Let's see who it is." The figure moved closer, and Jack's grip tightened. As the person stepped into the light, Jack recognized the familiar face of Dr. Kryl, a Zarathian scientist known for his pacifist views. "Dr. Kryl?" Jack whispered, lowering his weapon. The scientist nodded, his expression serious. "I'm here to help. I've been monitoring Tharn's activities for some time. What you found confirms my worst fears." Lyra's eyes widened. "You knew about this?" "I had suspicions," Dr. Kryl admitted. "Tharn's been using his position to manipulate both sides. He wants to see the peace talks fail, to justify a full-scale invasion of Earth." Jack exchanged a glance with Lyra. "We need to act fast. Tharn can't know we're onto him." Dr. Kryl nodded. "There's a hidden passageway that leads directly to the Emperor's chambers. It's our best chance to get this information to him without being detected." They followed Dr. Kryl through the winding corridors of the embassy, moving swiftly yet cautiously. The passageway was narrow and dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of must and secrecy. As they approached the Emperor's chambers, the tension in the air was palpable. Finally, they reached a heavy door. Dr. Kryl pressed the hidden panel, and the door slid open silently. They stepped inside to find Emperor Varric deep in conversation with his advisors. He looked up, surprise and concern flashing across his face as he saw the urgency in their expressions. "Your Majesty," Jack began, stepping forward, "we have proof that General Tharn is behind the sabotage. He's been working with a rogue human faction to undermine the peace talks." Lyra handed the Emperor a datapad containing the intercepted messages. Varric's eyes narrowed as he read through the evidence, his expression darkening with each line. "This is grave news indeed," the Emperor said, his voice heavy with the weight of the revelation. "We must act swiftly to prevent further sabotage." Before they could formulate a plan, an alarm blared throughout the embassy. The room plunged into chaos as security personnel rushed to their stations. Jack's communicator buzzed with an urgent message. "It's Tharn," Jack said, his voice tense. "He's launched a coup. We need to secure the Emperor and rally our forces." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Jack and Lyra worked side by side, coordinating with Zarathian and human security teams to repel Tharn's forces. The embassy became a battleground, the air thick with the sounds of conflict. As the fighting intensified, Jack and Lyra found themselves cornered by Tharn and his loyalists. The general's eyes burned with fury and determination. "You've interfered for the last time, Lawson," Tharn snarled, drawing his weapon. Jack stood his ground, his voice steady. "It's over, Tharn. We have the evidence. The Emperor knows the truth." Tharn's expression twisted with rage. "You think this ends here?" You're a fool, Lawson. This is only the beginning. Before Tharn could pull the trigger, Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. Stand down, Tharn. Your betrayal ends now. Tharn hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. In that moment, Dr. Kryl and a squad of security officers burst into the room, weapons drawn. It's over, General, Kryl said firmly. Surrender or face the consequences. Tharn's shoulders sagged as he realized his defeat. He dropped his weapon, and the security officers moved in to apprehend him. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the aftermath of Tharn's betrayal left a heavy burden on Jack and Lyra. As the dust settled, Emperor Varric approached Jack and Lyra, his expression a mixture of gratitude and solemnity. You have saved us from a great disaster. But the road ahead is still fraught with challenges. We must rebuild trust and continue our efforts for peace. Just as they began to relax, Jack's communicator buzzed again. The message was from Earth. Critical intelligence has been intercepted. The conspiracy reaches farther than we thought. We need you back immediately. The aftermath of Tharn's coup left the embassy in a fragile state. Jack Lawson knew their mission was far from over. His communicator buzzed incessantly with updates from Earth, the situation growing more dire with each passing moment. The intercepted intelligence indicated that the conspiracy was not isolated to Tharn and his rogue faction. It was part of a larger, more insidious plot that spanned multiple planets. Jack and Lyra stood in the war room, poring over the new data with Emperor Varric and Dr. Kryl. The tension was palpable as they realized the full scope of the threat. This is bigger than we thought, Jack said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. We need to mobilize our forces and prepare for a coordinated strike. If we don't act now, it could mean war on a scale we've never seen. Emperor Varric nodded gravely, agreed. We must move quickly. Dr. Kryl, coordinate with our intelligence units. Jack, Lyra, you will lead the joint task force. We must root out every last remnant of this conspiracy. Lyra's eyes met Jack's, a silent understanding passing between them. They had come so far together, and now the fate of their worlds rested on their shoulders. The task force was assembled within hours. Zorathian and human soldiers, scientists and strategists worked side by side, their differences set aside for the common goal of peace. Jack and Lyra briefed their teams, outlining the mission's objectives with precision and clarity. Our primary target is the Rogue Faction's command center, Jack explained, pointing to a holographic map. It's heavily fortified, but if we can take it down, we'll cripple their operations. Lyra added, we also need to secure key communication hubs. Disrupting their coordination will give us the upper hand. Remember, our goal is to minimize casualties. We're here to protect, not destroy. The operation commenced at dawn. The task force moved swiftly and silently through the dense alien terrain, their movements synchronized and purposeful. Jack led the ground team, his keen, tactical mind guiding their every step. Lyra, with her deep knowledge of Zorathian technology, directed the tech teams, ensuring their success in disabling enemy communications. As they approached the command center, the air grew thick with anticipation. Jack signaled for his team to halt, assessing the heavily guarded perimeter. He turned to Lyra, who was monitoring their progress through a portable console. We're almost there, he said quietly. Once we breach the outer defenses, we need to move fast. No hesitation. Lyra nodded, her resolve unwavering. I'm ready, Jack. Let's end this. With a silent command, Jack led the charge. The task force erupted into action, their movements a blur of precision and efficiency. Explosions lit up the sky as they breached the command center's defenses, pushing forward despite the fierce resistance. Inside, the battle raged on. Jack and Lyra fought side by side, their skills complementing each other perfectly. Jack's tactical prowess and Lyra's technological expertise created a formidable combination, turning the tide in their favor. Amidst the chaos, Jack spotted the leader of the rogue faction, a shadowy figure orchestrating the defense. His instincts kicked in and he charged forward, determined to end the threat once and for all. Cover me, Jack shouted to Lyra as he engaged the enemy leader in a fierce hand-to-hand combat. The two exchanged blows, each strike fueled by the high stakes of their conflict. Lyra, meanwhile, worked frantically to disable the command center's mainframe. Her fingers flew over the console, hacking through layers of security protocols. As she breached the final firewall, she initiated a system shutdown, crippling the enemy's ability to coordinate their forces. The enemy leader, realizing the battle was lost, attempted a desperate escape. Jack pursued relentlessly, his determination unyielding. With a final, decisive strike, he subdued the leader, securing the victory. As the dust settled, Jack and Lyra regrouped with their team. The command center lay in ruins, and the remaining enemy forces had surrendered. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. Jack turned to Lyra, his face reflecting both relief and exhaustion. "We did it, Lyra. It's over.